Okay guys, so now we're going to go ahead and get into factoring. So this is just a review, right? So basically the first step in factoring is to factor out the GCF. So remember, when you're factoring, you're trying to figure out what two or more factors or polynomials would multiply to give me my current expression. So for example, we're starting with the polynomial 6x squared t plus 8xt plus 12t. Okay, great. You think to yourself, oh, that's my finished answer. But when you're factoring, you're actually trying to work backwards. So you're trying to figure out what multiplied to give me that idea. And the first thing we want to look at is factoring out a GCF, which is the greatest common factor. Now, when you have a polynomial, the GCF is going to consist of two things. The first thing is, as you look at the coefficients, 6, 8, and 12, you want to identify what's the largest number that divides all three of those. You always want to aim for the highest, the greatest common divisor or factor. So 6, 8, and 12, well, they're all even, so they're all divisible by 2. 6 is divisible by 3, but 8 isn't. So it looks like the greatest common factor for the coefficients right now would be 2. And then we want to look at the rest of each term and look at the variables. So we can see we have a couple x's and a t, an x and a t, and just a t at the end. So you have to pick the variable that occurs in every single term. Well, if we look at that, the variable that occurs in every single term is going to be t. So that means we can pull out exactly 1t. Now, if the smallest exponent had been squared or something like that, that's what we want to pull out. We want to always pull out the smallest exponent on the variable that occurs in each term. So notice t occurs in each term, and the smallest exponent is a 1 on that t. So that's the most t's we can pull out or divide out of each term. Notice an x does not occur in this last term, hence why we cannot pull out an x to be in our GCF. So 2t is going to be our GCF. Now we want to go ahead and divide each one of these terms by 2t and then write what's left over. So 6x squared t divided by 2t. 6 divided by 2 is 3. We were not pulling any x's out, so we'll just leave it as x squared. Currently has a t, pulling out a t. So that means the t is gone, or t divided by t is just 1. Okay. Now let's move to the next term, 8xt divided by 2t. That'll give you 4x. And then we have 12t divided by 2t, which means 6. There's no x's, and the t's cancel. So you are done. And that is factoring out the GCF. You just have your GCF out front, and then you have your factored polynomial. Now, the great thing about this is you can check your work. How do I check my work, Alicia? Well, we know that factoring is the act of pulling out a term or dividing out a term. So theoretically, if I multiply this guy back in, I should get back to my original polynomial. And in fact, if I do multiply it back in, I will get this original guy as well. So there's always a way to double check. So make sure you're checking your answer and factoring out that GCF first.